Good morning and welcome to the transfer show on the 28th of May. Tuesday it is for EPL Index. It's the transfer up, isn't it? And to be honest, people, it still seems to focus around the managers, but players are now starting to come into the mix. There's a few more interviews, agents are speaking, so it's just starting to heat up nicely. We might as well on manager train because that's where we are. And we might as well start at Manchester United because that famous quote unquote season review is set to conclude, isn't it? It'll be interesting to see what the findings are there. But a few stories coming out. So there's a mix again, and you're probably not surprised about this at all. But The Guardian has that United have spoken to Roberto De Zerbi, the former Brighton boss, the one who's just left at the end of the season, over the possibility of succeeding Ten Hag. So that's an interesting one. However, the MEN, the local rag, have said that they're considering retaining Ten Hag as their manager. It's both possible. They could be looking at all the options. It is a season review, etc. But you wouldn't bet serious money on Eric Ten Hag being there come the start of next season. One that a couple, I suppose you could say, on steam bombs that broke late. It's important to say Chelsea are open talks. Leicester have a compensation for Enzo Maresca. So they've chosen him as the head coach specifically over all the other options. De Zerbi was in the mix. Kieran McKenna was eliminated, according to reports yesterday. Thomas Frank was also mentioned. So very much it seems Maresca is set for Chelsea. And maybe the one that surprised a lot of people, maybe not, I don't know. But as David Ornstein also released late last night, Kieran McKenna, the Ipswich boss, the one who had all his picks, that Chelsea were interested, United, Brighton even, he seemed to have the next step. He's set to sign a long-term contract, an extension at Ipswich. So there you go. Interesting to see who Brighton now go for, because he was the bookies' favourites there to make that move. Moving back to players, there's some interesting ones. There's some young, there's some old. So we'll go across the mix. We'll go age downwards almost here. So maybe a nice one, a romantic element. He was pictured at Wembley in their playoff triumph. Adam Lallana, 36 years old now, according to Telegraph, is in talks to return to Southampton on a free transfer because he's leaving Brighton. Obviously, it's that player-coach role when his contract expires. So, yeah, that would be a bit of a romantic return, wouldn't it? 36 years old. Going into prime age range, Bruno Guimaraes, the Newcastle midfielder, 26. Now, there's quite a few stories coming around this at the moment, but the one I picked was from Goal, because Goal is saying that there's actually 3 real clubs in the mix. Everyone knows about this release clause, don't they? This 100 million. Eddie Howe's confirmed it. But Goal has PSG, Manchester City now, and Arsenal all in the mix for Bruno. And Newcastle naturally do not have European football, with United winning the FA Cup, so it will be interesting to see what happens there. We also know about Newcastle's issues and many other clubs around the PSR FP in that regard. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. The Star has got a player that's long linked with Manchester United, the Everton central defender, Jared Branthwaite, 21 years old, in the England provisional squad. The United are trying to strike a deal around 60 million, but Everton are demanding 80. So I wonder if they'll split the difference. But you do fancy in Everton's current predicament that they might well sell Branthwaite. However, on that, there's quite a few outlets have that John Textor is the favourite actually to now purchase Everton. If people are wondering who the heck's that, it's the guy that owns Lyon. It's the guy that owns a share in Crystal Palace. However, he's looking to sell that because naturally you cannot own the shares in 2 Premier League clubs. But if he does get that stake in Palace sold, he will then use it to buy Everton. That will become part of his multi-club portfolio. So it'll be interesting to see there. A player that was mentioned from the French league the other day, the Mirror have got the Desire Doué, 18, the Rennes midfielder, is of interest to both United and Arsenal. There's quite a few Premier League clubs been linked with this kid, so it will be interesting to see what happens in this regard. And then it also came out from quite a few outlets. So I've picked one here, the I News, saying that Chelsea specifically have offered Tosin a contract. The guy's on a free transfer, the former City products, 26 years old, central defender. Can understand why he'd be popular for a number of clubs, that homegrown element as well. But Chelsea are now rivaling Newcastle. So Chelsea have put a contract on the table for him, which is interesting because they're naturally trying to sell, by the sounds of it, a lot of their homegrown players, aren't they, for profit? But maybe that's a replacement coming in already. The Daily Echo, the local Southampton newspaper, said that they've been promoted. Naturally, they've had to pay City 20 million for Taylor Harwood-Bells. So that's part of the deal. So it's a nice little boost for Manchester City there. But they'll also try and help other Premier League clubs. So West Ham's English winger Flynn Downs has been on loan there, as has Newcastle's 30-year-old Scottish winger Ryan Fraser. So it now says they'll try and do permanent deals to boost the coffers of West Ham and Newcastle. TalkSport's got an interesting line. They fully expect Enzo Maresca to be the new Chelsea boss, but if for any reason that does go through, well, so I should say that a different way, it's expected to go through. It's an interestingly worded article, but West Brom, Carlos Corberan, if you've kept in touch with any Championship news, that he's the manager that Leicester will be targeting is a replacement. It sounds just if it does happen, doesn't happen, but I think everyone expects Maresca to move to Chelsea. An interesting one. James Trafford, the young Burnley keeper, the English youth international under 21, won the Euros, didn't he? Got a drop from the Burnley team after a while. The Burnley team that got relegated came from Manchester City for big money. Depends which one you want to believe, because Football Insider and the Mail have both got Liverpool and Newcastle interested in the young stopper. However, Football Insider does mention that if Liverpool are to move for Trafford, it looks like Stephen Kelleher will have to leave the club. And speaking of Football Insider, it's an interesting one. They say that United fully expect Casemiro to move to a Saudi club and are willing to sell for a loss, but to get those wages off the books even. Wouldn't really be any surprise after the season he's had. Interestingly, for all the talk over Villa for the last few days and who they're signing and interested in, like Ross Barkley, etc., Mundo Deportivo, the Spanish outlet, is saying they will not make their permanent move for Clement Lenglet, the 28-year-old from Barcelona, the French central defender. They will not make that permanent, so you wouldn't have any surprise, especially with Diogo Carlos rumoured to be up for sale and part of FFP PSR. There was maybe one, maybe two moves even for Villa in the centre defender market, but we'll have to see. The Mirror honed in on Leeds a bit. Obviously, they didn't go up, and what will happen with them. Has mentioned that Somerville, a player that's been linked with these clubs, Liverpool and Chelsea, are among the interested parties. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Somerville. Obviously, there was a lot of articles yesterday saying they fully expect him to make the move away from Leeds because Leeds need the cash, don't they, in simple terms. A story that we mentioned a while ago, but an Italian outlet, Corriere della Sera, saying that Conte, set to be the new Napoli boss, does want Romelu Lukaku on the basis that Victor Osimhen is fully expected to join a Premier League team. As the article says, it's been a nightmare season, really, unfortunately, for Napoli. They have finished in 10th place, well different from that title-winning team from the other year. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what does happen with Osimhen. And then a couple of stories for around the globe. It's interesting just to keep in touch. Tottenham right back Emerson Royal, the Brazilian international, 25. It does get linked with a lot of clubs. And again, Di Maurizio's got him as of interest to AC Milan. Now, PSG's young midfielder, Xavi Simons, he was on loan, wasn't he, at Red Bull. He was sensational there. People just assumed he would keep him. But according to Mundo Deportivo, it's not that straightforward. Again, there's interest from Leipzig, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, United, Newcastle, a lot of interest in the Premier League, but that the young player wants to join Barcelona for whatever reason. Doesn't seem like he's set to be given a look in at PSG, despite how good a season he's just had for Red Bull. So it's an interesting one. And we might as well finish on a player that we've been talking about for the last few days, realistically. The Lille centre-back, the young player, 18-year-old Lenny Yoro, his name keeps coming up. So Foot Mercato, a French publication, are saying that Real Madrid are ready to offer in excess of 25 million. I mean, quite a few articles over the last few days have that is his preferred option, but Real Madrid obviously will only go up to a certain amount with the other money they've got to commit elsewhere for, funnily enough, another young French talent, superstar. So it will be interesting to see what does happen and what price Lille will ask, or whether they will be bowled over in the sense of, with a year left to go, we want Real Madrid, but we suspect we'll get an update by the end of this summer on a move for Lenny Yoro. So that will be an interesting one to watch. So, ladies and gents, we'll probably get some more confirmations manager-wise, maybe even today, maybe even by the end of the week. But on Tuesday, the 28th of May, that was your EPL Index Transfer Daily.